everyone, thank you so much for joining today's Guide Talk. We are very excited to continue our educational series this month with a focus on orientation. My name is Casey, and joining me for this webinar today is Tyler. Welcome to those of you who are joining us for the very first time, and welcome back to our repeat webinar joiners. If you have questions at any point during the presentation, please leave a comment in the chat box below. We'll address it at the end during our Q&A. And just so that you know, we do have guidebookers monitoring the chat. So if you're having any technical issues or if you have any general questions, please let us know. All right, let's begin today's webinar with a quick round of introductions. As I mentioned a moment ago, my name is Casey Johnstone. I serve as a growth client success manager on Guidebook sales team, focusing specifically on higher ed. This is special for me because I actually started my career in student affairs working with new student orientation programs. I fell in love with the platform and enjoyed the guidebookers that I interacted with, so much so that I decided to make a pivot and join the team. I will go ahead and turn it over to Tyler to introduce himself.
Thanks, Casey. Hey everyone, my name is Tyler Yeager. I'm the EDU account executive here at Guidebook. Essentially, I work with universities and colleges daily to help deploy mobile apps across campuses. So I'm typically one of the very first members you'll speak with to discuss use cases, mobile app strategies and goals, deployment plans, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I do. Extremely excited for this call and really looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyler. So for this webinar, we broke the agenda down into 3 separate sections. In the first section, I'll be discussing how mobile has transformed EDU events and give an overview on how you can create mobile apps for student orientation. In the second section, Tyler will be giving a demo of the Guidebook platform. And then finally, we'll save some time at the very end to close out the webinar with a Q&A section. Again, I mentioned it at the beginning, but if at any point you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll address them at the very end of the presentation. Awesome, so let's get started. Every year, colleges and universities bring incoming students together for introduction to campus life and help them become more familiar with their new community. With the advancement of technology, it's important to look at the role mobile plays today and how mobile can work to transform your EDU events. Apps account for 89% of mobile media time, and the younger generations are leading this shift. More than ever, users treat mobile devices as their primary platform to access internet for news, communication, entertainment, and more. In fact, more than 97% of freshmen are going to be arriving on campus with a smartphone in hand. Now, there's a variety of reasons why institutions have turned to mobile apps for their events. Not only can you keep students informed, but you can keep them engaged throughout the week and increase attendance for your events. Additionally, you can communicate with your students in real time while spending less money on printing materials. Let's take a look at some steps that you can take to create the best orientation app possible. First, let's focus on what goes inside an orientation app. So at its most basic, an orientation app is a place to put all of the information that would have otherwise been stuffed into a welcome packet or printed in a program book. We all know that when you give students paper handouts, they usually end up shoved in a bag, forgotten on the floor somewhere, or just straight up thrown away in the garbage. This fact alone is one of the main drivers behind most student affairs pros seeking out an app in the first place. All right, so let's break it down. What basic information should you put in your app? First off, the schedule. Everyone wants to know what's going on and where they need to be during orientation. So we like to think of the schedule as the core of your app. Within the master schedule, you can actually create separate tracks for each of the populations your orientation serves. So you can have a schedule track for first-year students, transfer students, and families and guests. By segmenting your audience and creating an easy to understand schedule, your users will be able to navigate their way throughout the week successfully. And I think Tyler will touch on this in his demo. Next up, campus maps and landmarks for easy navigation. So rather than sending students off with either a paper map or telling them vaguely like head in this direction and make a right and then a left and then a right, you can equip them with digital maps and key landmark information. The sooner they feel comfortable navigating campus, the better. Another thing to include are FAQs. So as you all already know, your incoming students are going to have a lot of questions, and this is your chance to anticipate and answer them immediately. A great FAQ section can reduce the amount of emails and frantic phone calls that your office receives in the weeks or days leading up to orientation. Most of you already have a robust FAQ section on your website probably, but if you're not sure what to include, you can always ask last year's student orientation leaders, since they're the ones who are fielding a lot of the questions. Next up on things to include in your app is information on campus life. So this is a great opportunity to get a head start on encouraging your new students to get involved on campus. Your app is a place to tease out opportunities to join campus groups, volunteer, socialize. Maybe you have some really key tradition events at the start of the year and you want to get people excited for it. Remember, engagement is key, and you want to build interest and hype around your campus activities and culture. Next up is a staff directory. So making you and your staff available by listing contact information instills a lot of trust and also makes your app valuable beyond orientation. Not only can you include professional staff, but you can also incorporate your orientation leaders so that students can start making connections with peers. Some schools go as far as to set up orientation-specific social media accounts for each of their student leaders where incoming students can ask questions and talk directly to a current student. Next up is your website. So most orientation pages aren't always the easiest web page to find. They're not always easy to find on a college website, so you can link to it directly within your app. And this will also make sure that your website's engagement goes up. And then lastly, push notifications. So you can set up your app to send out push notifications about important dates coming up, reminders, where to go for certain events, or even after the fact to welcome them on campus. If during your program there's a last minute change, you can also send a push notification to let everyone know in real time. All right, so we've covered the information that you need to put in your app, but what about the engagement aspect? Here are some things that you can add to your mobile app in order to increase engagement. So first off, my personal favorite is the interact feature. If you really want to turn your app into a destination, you can enable the activity feed. Students and parents will be served the most relevant schedule items instantly. They'll be encouraged to share photos. You can even participate in public discussions right on the home screen of the app. I think this is one of the things that Tyler will be showing a little bit later in his demo. But like I said, it's my favorite. Next, you can have an inbox. So enable your app's ability to directly message each individual user. A message inbox, it's a great place to encourage engagement with certain parts of the app or make last minute updates. Next one that typically is really big with orientation folks is surveys. So if you want feedback on the app, or if you want to give students the ability to influence your program's content, you can stick a survey inside the app and start collecting data in real time. Next up is a photo album. So if you would like, you can create a shared photo album, and that's a great way to get students checking the app often and participating in its content. It's also the perfect way for you to see your event through the eyes of someone who's experiencing it for the very first time. That's always a special moment. And then lastly, on ways to get engagement going, you can include social media. So with social media, the conversation around orientation might be happening on a lot of disparate channels. So you can gather them all in one place with a social media section in your app. Now that you've built it, how do you get people to use it? So, getting people to adopt and use an app isn't hard, but it does take a little bit of strategizing. So, we've seen enough successful orientation apps to offer up some pretty fail proof marketing strategies. And this is also something that your account manager team can help work with you on. So, first off, on our fail proof marketing strategies is start early. The most successful orientation apps have really great adoption before anyone even steps foot on campus. You can use the channels available to you to encourage students to download and start exploring the app several weeks before their orientation session occurs. Next, tell them in multiple ways. So, sending an email about downloading your app is a good place to start, but it's not the whole answer. I would recommend promoting it on social media, and for big download numbers, you can make a video about it. Next, make sure that it's the sole source of information. And this might be it might sound a little counterintuitive because you want to send out all the information and make sure that students have access to it. But if all the most important information about orientation can be found within the app, and it's the only way to get that information, your students will have every reason they need to download the app. Schools that go halfway and supplement their apps with paper booklets or having all the information also accessible a different way, like on their website, tend to not see as many great download numbers. Next, make it easy on site. So when students arrive and they're checking in, it's a great time to make sure that they've been using the app or have it downloaded. You can make this question a part of your registration process. And if you have student leaders or extra professional staff, have them standing by to assist students who haven't yet downloaded the app to make sure that everyone is using it. And then lastly, include the parents and families. So more often than not, we'll see schools with anywhere from 120% to 200% adoption rates on their orientation apps. And why? It's because mom and dad love being in the know. I'm sure all of you have dealt with a nosy family member or guest, so you know this is true. When you market to parents, you're actually doubling your information's reach and recruits another persuasion channel for getting students to download the app onto their phone. And then lastly, as a general note, don't forget to make your app beautiful. So a little thought about your app's branding can go a long way. Most institutions have brand standards, and those are created to make sure that everything that your institution rolls out is a cohesive experience. If your app has a cohesive look, it's packed with a lot of photos and reflects the larger brand of your university, your students are going to trust it more from the get-go, and they're going to be more inclined to return to it as a source. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, but that is it from me. I'm going to transition it over to Tyler now for a product demo so you can see it in action.
Thanks, Casey. Really good summary though of really how you can incorporate the different like materials and content you can incorporate into an app. So as Casey just mentioned, I am gonna pull up a quick demo version. I'm not gonna show all the features that Casey might have highlighted, but definitely gonna touch on a few. So looking at the simulator now, and full disclosure, Millersville, they are a very good client of ours. They're using us for orientation as well as a couple other different use cases as well. But essentially this example is merely just an example, right? So what I'm about to show, obviously your team is gonna have complete capabilities to come in here and customize it accordingly. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we expand on the menu item, it pulls up an array of options. And essentially these options are what gets customized based on the content your team is trying to get in there, based on the resources you want to be able to communicate to your students or to the users. So adding in features, taking away features, renaming features, changing the icon, all of that is flexible based on, again, what your team is trying to get in. So I'm not gonna talk about every single menu item, but I definitely just want to highlight a few things based on what Millersville has done and what they've done a really good job of. So if we look at simply just like the schedule, being able to have a schedule of the orientation weekend, day, whatever it might be, highlighting when things are happening, what events or sessions they should be attending, which locations, things like that. You probably notice these little plus signs that allows students or users to be able to register for specific sessions. So that way it can show up under their personal agenda within the app. They can get notifications, they can get reminders whenever that session or event is about to start. So again, the schedule is just a really good way, obviously, to incorporate all that stuff. You don't have to worry about paper pamphlets or anything like that. It's just within the app, it's going to tell them when things are happening, and location, so on and so forth. The other thing you can do with the schedule is like preset a user's agenda. So if you know that a group of students should be attending, these specific sessions, you can already preset that for them. So when they log in and they click on my personal agenda or whatever you want to name that, they already see those sessions that you've pre-populated. And then lastly, you can also group your sessions into like specific categories or tracks. And in Millersville example, they grouped a lot of their sessions based on like the student group number. So if I'm a student, I can easily just filter out the sessions accordingly and focus just on my specific group. So just a couple different nuances really to help make it as easy as possible for the end user. So that way they don't have to do a lot of scrolling or a lot of clicks. It's easy, right to the point. When we click on each specific session, this is where you can then incorporate any additional information. So whether it be a map as to where they need to go to get that specific session, maybe it's a PDF document, a link to a web page, a link to a specific professor or something like that. Really, any information you want to link to or incorporate for a specific event or session, this is the place you'll do so. So anyway, that's just a quick summary of the schedule. A couple other things to highlight as well is, Casey mentioned this, it's one of our favorite features, is the interaction feed to really help kind of boost engagement within the app and kind of make it a little bit more, I want to say friendly per se, but it very much has like a social media feel. And this is where users can come in, they can add posts, they can comment on posts, they can add photos, so on and so forth, which I'm sure you can see why this is one of Casey's favorite features. But nonetheless, again, here's just a quick sample of how Millersville is particularly using this feature. Couple other things that they did a good job of highlighting is like contact information or notable people that they want to recognize. So for example, like orientation leaders. And if we click on each person's name, we can then have any additional information relating to that person. Maybe highlighting, let's say, Office of the President, if you have multiple contacts to list out, and of course, information within each person. So being able to highlight your various contact information within the app is extremely helpful for obviously new students and users. Another thing that I really like is like their places on campus. So being able to highlight different academic or administrative buildings, and if we just click on each one, obviously pulls up the different options or different buildings that are out there. And if we click on each building, gives us more information about that specific location. The other thing that they did a really good job of is highlighting like the bus schedule. And then they incorporated like, different information related to that, linking to a PDF schedule, so on and so forth, giving them an idea of when things are leaving. They have also incorporated like a campus map. So two different ways with your campus map. It can either be like an interactive, like static image, or you can also link directly out to, let's say, another third-party map. So in their case, this is linking out directly to their map on their website. So they don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. They can just link accordingly. So a couple different ways, and I really liked how they structured, really just being able to communicate these different points of interest and whatnot. So a couple other things, on-campus resources, just highlighting like the different departments or different kind of say topics and giving them information and relating to each one. So if I have questions on financial services, I can click on it. I have access to like the contact information. And of course, if I wanted to provide more info, I could easily do so. They've incorporated FAQs, which Casey mentioned as well. So having a quick list of FAQs. And of course, if we click on each one, having obviously the answer. Being able to, incorporate things like maybe just values and, what our mission is and so on and so forth. Casey mentioned about being able to incorporate your website directly into the app. And I have to say, this is probably one of my most favorite features just because you can link out internally or externally. When you link out externally, it's not going to open up Safari or Chrome or anything like that. It's going to keep us directly within the app. So being able to maneuver through their website directly through one platform, one resource is an extreme benefit. It essentially gives them access to a lot of information by only going to one place. So yeah, Casey, this is probably one of my favorite features if if we had to pinpoint one. But Anyway, so again, this is just an example. We could probably spend another 2 hours going through all the other examples we have. But the biggest thing I just want to stress is that your team can control the content that gets in here. You can control the information and resources that you're trying to communicate to your students. You can also separate the information. So you could have separated by first-year students. You could have a guide for parents and families. You could have a guide for transfer students. So there's a lot of variety of ways that you can really segregate kind of your data based on the audience that you're trying to target and the content you want to communicate with. So anyway, that's a short sample. Happy to dig into it further if necessary. But that's it from me. I'll turn this over to Connor, and I'm sure there's some questions we'll go over.
Hey everyone, my name is Connor from the marketing team over here at Guidebook. We're going to jump into the Q&A portion now. Thank you again for Casey and Tyler. So yeah, we'll be going through those questions that some of you all have been dropping in through the chat. If you haven't already, feel free to drop any other questions in there. We'll get through it right now. And then, yeah, if we don't get through them all, you can expect a follow-up email after this with answers to all your questions and a recording, of course, of this video of this webinar today. Okay, so I'm jumping straight to the first question for you, Tyler. You might have touched on this a bit at the end there, but can we provide specific information for students and their parents?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like what I just mentioned about having your own separate guides for either your parents or for your students. Even within one guide, it's possible to add information for all different attendees kind of based on their needs. So like you can create custom list items for different types of information. You schedule tracks to segment sessions by audiences. So again, whether it's separating it by guide or being able to separate it within the app using custom lists or tracks or something like that, yeah, there's definitely ways to do that.
Awesome. Great. Now jumping over to you, Casey. Is there an opportunity for our school to scale this use of Guidebook beyond just orientation?
Yeah, absolutely. So orientation is probably one of the easier use cases for Guidebook, but a lot of our clients end up using Guidebook for different purposes throughout the student life cycle. So beginning with admissions, we have folks who use from the admissions point of view for admitted student day, or if you do a preview weekend. Also for tours, you could do a self-guided tour. We have folks that use us for welcome week, graduation, homecoming, or alumni reunions. So really the sky is the limit. We have some groups that use it as they have a guide specific to their student leaders as a training manual rather than giving them a binder or a bunch of papers to keep track of. So yeah, there's a ton of different ways to employ it beyond orientation.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for that. And then Ty, back to you. So can you make different schedules for your orientation leaders than just the students attending?
Yeah, good question. So yes, it is possible to share different sessions with different groups of people. You can create different tracks for each audience and then make those available from the main menu in the app. Additionally, you can also use preset scheduling to assign sessions to a Guidebook account for specific users or groups of users. So when they sign into their Guidebook account, they'll see the sessions assigned to them in their My Schedule.
Awesome. Great. Casey, so we host 15 different orientations. If we want to send out pushes only to the participants of certain sessions, is that an option?
Yeah, so with push notifications, you can send out targeted notifications. So you could specify the students or attendees that have signed up for a specific session only to send it out to those people.
Awesome. For a more tailored demo to suit your specific needs, you can always reach out to your account manager or submit a demo request on our website. Like I said, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a recording of today's demo and additional resources. So keep a lookout for that in the next couple of days. Yeah, we appreciate you all joining. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Have a great one.